Hi everyone, it's Amanda Ellis of amandaellis.co.uk, Facebook page Angelic Celestial Colours. It's February the 8th, 2018, and I'm making a video today on the cycle of life. By nature of talking about the cycle of life, we are going to be looking at death, and in fact particularly this video is going to be looking at death, and it's also going to be touching on suicide. So those of you that maybe are feeling a little bit fragile, maybe are feeling a little bit depressed, or just aren't up to watching this today, why don't you just park it for another day when you're feeling a little bit stronger, because there might be some emotion that comes up in this, there probably will be, and although my words have every intention of being as encouraging, as supportive, as comforting as they can, the subject itself is a heavy one, but it's a subject that I feel that I have to say something about today because it's very raw for me at this moment. We lost a beautiful member of our family 2 days ago, Barbara, my mother-in-law, and a stunning woman, and it happened quite quickly, quite suddenly. And it's very shocking, and we're all grieving her immensely. I have said as much on my Facebook page, and thank you so much for all the support and love that you've poured out to me and my family, and I know that they all appreciate it, and I really feel it's helped. It's really helped my husband as well. I really know that to be the case. But anyway, I wasn't really going to say anything in public about this. Grief is a very private process, and also you need time to process it. It's a journey at the end of the day, and everybody manifests that journey in a different way. They have different reactions. It takes different lengths of time. So I just wanted to really withdraw, but something happened yesterday, which was that I took my dog for a walk on the beach, and I bumped into a lady who had news of somebody else's death in their early 40s, and very shocking, very tragic. And then I came home and my daughter's parents' evening had been cancelled. My daughter is 15. I thought it was a bit strange because it was right at the last minute the school cancelled it due to unforeseen circumstances, and you know what teenagers are like, they're all on social media and they all want to know what's going on, and sadly it looks like a girl, 15, took her own life yesterday. One of Lucy's school year compatriots, colleagues, whatever. I didn't know this girl personally, I don't know the family, but obviously it's very close to home. Got a message from the school this morning just saying not to say anything on social media, so I'm not going to name her. I guess they don't want people gossiping, which is fair enough, but you know, the name will hit the papers soon anyway, and it will be public knowledge. It already is public knowledge, it's out there. I think when her name is released in a public way, well, her name's already out there, but her photograph and everything, I may well put a little photograph up of her on my Facebook page, just so we can honour her life, and send healing and prayers to her family, because that's what we do when we work with the angelic realm. But yes, so in the space of effectively 3 days, there's three deaths very close to me that I've heard about or I've been connected to. And Metatron just sort of said, look, you know, I know you're grieving, I know you want time, and you can have time, but please just get on there and talk a little bit about death today. So that's what I'm going to do. That is the purpose of this video. Where to start, to be honest, where to start? I've got in front of me a reading I'd like to read to you. I've got my sprays that helped Barbara as she passed over. I'd like to talk about those because I think it will help other people that are maybe sitting with people that are close to death, or indeed those of you that are grieving as well. Before we do that, I'd like to light 3 candles, okay? And the first candle I'm going to light is for beautiful Barbara. In the UK we have there's a joke. There's a joke that goes around. It's the mother-in-law joke. We had two great comics, Les Dawson and Leonard Rossiter. I loved both of them actually, but they really specialised in the mother-in-law joke. And the mother-in-law jokes have a varied theme, but it's always about, you know, they're usually battle axes, and they're people that, you know, they're very overprotective, and there's a whole stream of jokes about mother-in-laws in the UK. Well, I was just gifted the most beautiful mother-in-law, who was the complete opposite of that, who was a fountain of unconditional love. And I appreciated her in life, but my God, since she's died, I've really realised what a special woman she was. So this first candle is for Barbara. Okay, I'm going to put Barbara's candle on. Okay, so she passed, as I say, 48 hours ago. And I know that she's with the angels now. This candle is a candle for the girl that committed suicide yesterday in our town in Bournemouth, connected to my daughter's school. Bless your heart, sweetheart. We send you love, and we ask the angels to be with you and to help you cross fully over the Rainbow Bridge. I ask that your family are sent infinite love and support that they need at this time. And I also ask the angels to surround that whole school as well with compassion, with love and with kinship, and to also be with the teachers, who I know were very upset yesterday as well, obviously. The third candle is for you. It's for anybody in your life that you've lost, anybody that you loved and that you are grieving. Because the truth is, when I was walking Bella yesterday and I was thinking about death, and I was walking past, I went to the beach, which was lovely, and then I was walking down a residential street, and it was twilight, and so everyone was sort of closing their curtains, and you could see people sort of like settling down for the night. And it really struck me that there wasn't a single house in that street that would not have been affected by death at some point, either in the recent past or in the distant past, or certainly in the future. It touches everybody, it touches every family. There is nobody alive that hasn't experienced some form of loss. So it's a universal truth, and it's something that as a society we don't like to acknowledge. We like to bury our head in the sand, and we as a society concentrate on youth, and we just go on and on about youth and maintaining youth. And at the end of the day, it's important that we honour the whole cycle of life, and there is beauty in old age as well. So anyway, for whatever age your loved one passed over, for whatever life they had, for whatever the manner of their death, I'm going to light a candle for them now, and this is for you. Okay, so we've got our 3 candles burning bright. I want to start off with the first candle here, which is the candle of the girl that committed suicide. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to have a glug of coffee first. It's a day which is a 2 cup of coffee day to start off the day. Metatron's saying tell them about the coffee. Okay, what he means by tell them about the coffee is that when you work with spirit and when you channel, there is this rather old-fashioned belief that you have to be a complete paragon of virtue, you know, and not have anything, you know, not consume coffee or, you know, anything like that. But don't forget that we are a bridge between earth and spirit. Heaven is a better word, because of course we are spirit as well. But we're a bridge between heaven and earth, let's use that language. And so therefore, there's nothing wrong with honouring your earthly self. And if your earthly self needs a cup of coffee to get going in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so what do I want to say about this beautiful girl? What do I want to say about suicide? suicide is something that is very prevalent in our society. I believe it's the leading cause of death in particularly young men under the age of, I think it's about 25. That's shocking in itself. But suicide has always been with us as something that happens. It's not something that's talked about. But actually it's one of those things that when you scratch beneath the surface, it's quite staggering how many people have a story in their family line, or they certainly know somebody that has been affected by it. My family has certainly been affected by it. My grandmother on my father's side committed suicide when she was probably in her 50s. She would have been in her 50s. And I have somebody else in my family who has tried to commit suicide a few times in their life, but are now okay, stable. I don't believe it's going to repeat. I always took the view that if you have a pattern of suicide in your family, that it's very important that one person puts their hand up and says, that pattern stops with me. And I made a conscious decision that, I'm not saying it's just me, but I definitely put my hand up and said, however bad life ever got, however bad life ever gets, I will never do that. It stops with me. Okay, it stops with this generation, because it often goes in families. And the reason it goes in families is that whether we have a good role model or a bad role model doesn't really matter. Who we grow up with, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they do form a role model. They can be a really bad role model, they can be a really good role model, they can be a flawed role model, which most people are. But the thing is, when you've seen somebody in the family line use suicide as an option to move on from their problems, it's like something within the subconscious that isn't there in a very visible way every day, but can lie latent within you, waiting for a trigger, waiting for something to happen. And then it's almost as though the switch gets turned on and you remember, well, you know, so-and-so used that as a way to get out of this. Maybe it's not so bad. And the relative who did that, or the ancestor who did that, will be in the higher realms and heaven shouting at you, saying, no, don't do that. Don't do what I did. Break the family chain. If you haven't got a family history of it, the same thing applies. You will have those in spirit pleading with you to stay here on the earth plane, reminding you that you chose to be here on the earth plane, reminding you that however dark it seems right now, however bad things seem, that life has a way of being a bit of a roller coaster at times. And just because it feels hopeless right now, within a month, 6 months, a year, a week, however long it's going to take, the scales can tip the other way, so that you experience great joy, great happiness, great beauty again. And it's just hanging on for the scales to tip again, because they will. They absolutely will. I think that's the tragedy about this young girl. Whatever was going on in her life, whatever was going on in her mind, probably could have been corrected. Support could have come in. If her life had carried on, I have no doubt that there would have been moments of great joy and beauty. And I'm not judging the action, but it is the truth that in all life we have these ups and downs. If you think back to the last video that I posted actually on my channel, I was in a really happy mood. I was in a very joyful mood. I talked about joy. I felt really, really good. Well, I still feel okay, but I'm also honouring the fact that I'm profoundly sad and reflective at this time because of Barbara's death, which has really shaken me, really, really shaken me. And that's okay, you know? Now, I'm not about to end my life or anything like that, but I'm just trying to use it as an illustration that life has these highs and it has these lows, and it doesn't always stay at one level. It doesn't ever stay at the low. The problem with suicide is that when you feel that low, you get to a place where you feel that everyone else is going to be better off without you, that life will be better off without you in it somehow. And if I'm talking to somebody right now who's got that mindset, I'm looking you in the eye and I'm saying the world needs you, and the world does love you, even if you don't feel that, even if you can't accept that. Please just hang on to that strand of truth that the world does love you, the world does need you. And even if you have around you at this time people that don't look like they do, there are other people that can come into your life at another stage that will show you love, that will show you hope. And the angels will hold you on the earth plane until that time that comes in. So please stay with us is the first thing I say, okay? Do I want to say anything else at this point? I will say that there is this spiritual truth that seems to be out there, that when people have committed suicide, that somehow you have to come back and you have to do it all again, and what's the point? You know, why would you do that? You've got to do it all again. What Metatron is saying to me is that the reality isn't quite as simple as that. Because it's a bit like, the analogy he's giving me is like starting school. So if you think about life, we're all basically at school. Life is a big school. And we go through it, and we go up through different grades. And some grades we do really well at. Some stages of life we do really well at. And other stages we might flunk and not do particularly well. And those life stages can be big things. It can be like becoming a mother or becoming a father. And maybe actually you flunk that a bit. You're not a particularly good mum or a particularly good dad. Other people will be excelling in that and get a gold star. But the people who flunk the parent bit might be very good at something else, whatever that is, okay? So we all are here in life, and it's a bit like a school, and we go through the grades. If you decide to opt out, and your angels will always want you to not do that, and people here on earth will want you to not do that, what would happen is that you don't just forget everything that you've experienced up to that point in time. If you take my grandmother as an example, in her 50s when she died, I don't believe she had to go right back to the bottom of the class again when she next incarnates, because you will incarnate again. What she will do is she might go back to first grade, but she'll sail through it because she's already done that stage. But the particular grades that she didn't do particularly well at, she will have to maybe resit, very much like you would resit an exam. But it's not about going back and having to do everything from scratch, because you can't, because you've actually been here. Any life, you have learnt something. A baby that is born and dies within an hour still has learnt something from this incarnation. It's learnt what it felt like to be with their parents for that hour. It's learnt something in that hour, and it's taught something in that hour. There is no life where you haven't touched another human being. There was a book that I wanted to talk about today, which I haven't actually brought up here, and as I'm sitting in my loft, I'm not going to run down and get it. But it is a book that I would encourage you to get if you're feeling as though, you know, what difference have I made in my life? You know, I'm looking at other people and they seem to have done so much more with their life. And it's a book called 5 People We Meet in Heaven. And in fact, Metatron's saying I've got to go and get it. So I'm not going to pause the camera. I'm going to pan the camera onto my flowers, and I'm going to run downstairs and get the book, because if I pause the camera, it takes longer for it to upload because I have to stitch all the bits together. So I just want you to sit, and I want you to think about your life and what you feel, maybe the people that you've touched in your life. And I'm going to be back hopefully within 30 seconds. Okay, you can time me. not quite 20 seconds. Right, this is the book. 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch, Albom. And I'll just read you what it says on the back of the book. It says, all endings are also beginnings. We just don't know it at the time. It says, on his 83rd birthday, Eddie, a lonely war veteran, dies in a tragic accident, trying to save a little girl from a falling cart. With his final breath, he feels 2 small hands in his, and then nothing. He awakens in the afterlife, where he learns that heaven is not a lush Garden of Eden, but a place where your earthly life is explained to you by 5 people who were in it. These people may have been loved ones or distant strangers, yet each of them changed your path forever. It's a fantastic book. I encourage you to read it. I also like the fact that it mentions the fact that sometimes the differences that we've made in other people's lives, we don't even know. We don't even realise. And it might just be somebody that you don't even have particularly in your life for very long, but yet you've made a profound difference upon them, okay? And the tragedy of this beautiful girl that's died is that she will have touched so many people, and it's a tragedy that she didn't realise that. On my Facebook page yesterday, I put a whole list of organisations such as the Samaritans for people to call if you are feeling as though you just need some support. Please don't write it in the posts below my video, because I'm not necessarily going to see them, because I'm going through a grieving process myself, but I will put up the numbers of organisations that you can ring today if you feel you need that support. Okay, we're going to move on now to part 2 of this video. And part 2 of the video is to talk more generally now about death. We're going to move off the subject of suicide. There's more to probably say on that another day, but I want to move on now more generally to talk about death. And I think what we'll do is we're going to read a poem to start with. And I'm going to read this one from The Prophet. I'm sure lots of you have got this book, The Prophet by Kahil, Gibran. And these are the words, okay? And actually this is so beautiful. I'm just going to spray the Bluebell Bridge. The Bluebell Bridge is a spray for loss and grief that we make. I'll read the words that go with that shortly. But this is beautiful, this piece of writing. Then Almitra spoke, saying, we would ask now of death. And he said, you would know the secret of death, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. In the depths of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond, and like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king, whose hand is to be laid upon him in honour. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath his trembling, that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling? For what is it to die, but to stand naked in the wind, and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing, but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing, and when you have reached the mountain top, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. And you dance and you move on and you pass over when you have lived the life that you were meant to live. And going to my second candle, which is Barbara's candle, what did I learn? What did I learn from the final few days? It's it's one of the things in life that we all, there are so many cliches out there. There are so many cliches out there. That life is short is one of them, isn't it? That's a big cliche. Life is short and you've got to make the most of it. And, you know, you've got to seize the day. And all of these sayings that we all know them. But the truth is that when you look somebody in the face when they're dying, I mean, they've gone anyway, really. I saw her a couple of hours before she died. She'd gone. She was just, you know, final breaths were coming. You hear the words again, but they resonate in a much deeper, more powerful way. You get it. You really get it. That life is short. It is to be seized. You know, she lived her whole life. She was in her 80s when she died. She lived her whole life and she did seize the day. One of my favourite photographs of her is a picture taken with my youngest daughter when my youngest daughter was probably about 4 or 5. And it's a picture of them making a daisy chain together. And Barbara's bending down and she's making this daisy chain with Sophie. And it's a reasonably sunny day, but it's not a hot day. They've got their coats on. And it's very poignant because my inner child isn't very good at playing and getting down on the ground and doing jigsaws and all of that type of stuff. It's something I have to work with. But here was a woman who would do that. And on that particular day, she made the time to sit and make the daisy chain with Sophie. And it's captured in this beautiful photograph. If I'm brutally honest, on that particular day, I don't actually remember the day, but if I had been there, I don't think I was, if I had been there, I would have probably made an excuse. Oh, the grass is a bit wet. It's a bit cold. Oh yeah, we'll do that in the summer, Sophie. Or I'd have rushed it, you know. Come on, let's make a quick daisy chain, and then we've got to get back to the car. Come on, the ticket's about to run out. I know myself well enough to know that's exactly what I would have done. She didn't. She stopped, she paused. That moment was the only moment that was important, making that daisy chain with her granddaughter. It's summed up her whole life, you know. If it was a sunny day, she would get on a ferry and go over to the Isle of Wight with other people and enjoy a picnic on the beach. Less than 3 months before she died, she was going on coach trips up to Liverpool to see the culture up there. She embraced life. She seized the day. And I tell you what, when I come to New York in November, I know she'll be with me. And she'll be pushing me on to seize the day. You probably can't hear it, but over there, out of my window, there's a school quite near me and there's a playing field over there. And there are children playing PE out there. And there are just sounds of the children coming in as they're playing their PE. It's quite a cold day. And that's poignant in itself. This girl never got to do PE again. She never got to feel the cold and see her breath in the cold air, to experience the exhilaration of actually completing something, of winning the race. It's about fully getting into life and engaging in life. And it's been I've known it mentally, but it's like you get it at a different level when you see death so up close. And how precious it is. Even in the difficult times, it's still about learning, it's still about being here, and we're here for such a short period of time. And when the difficult times come, it's knowing that this too shall pass, that there will be brighter days. There'll be plenty more days to make daisy chains. I want to talk a little bit about the bottles that I've got here, the sprays, because I've got a great load of help and support there for you right now if you're going through this. And for that, let's firstly talk about if you're facing losing somebody, or somebody's in sort of the final stages, what did I offer? What did I take? The very obvious one to take was the Rainbow Bridge. When somebody is passing over, they pass over the Rainbow Bridge. And the bottle is actually called Spirit Release, because it's about helping the soul more than anything to be at peace and let go, and to be able to see the great light that it's going towards, if it is your time, okay? It's not going to do it if it's not your time. But if it's your time, and only your soul knows that, and only God knows that, then it helps you just to let go, maybe from a place of pain, and it just supports the journey, supports the soul over the Rainbow Bridge. I think we used a whole bottle of it on Barbara. Just sprayed it over her. She wasn't necessarily even aware what was happening. And funny enough, I got given the bottle back today. Well, my husband had just left it on the breakfast bar. It had been given back, and there was a tiny little bit left in the bottle, tiny little bit left. And I straight away thought, oh, I'm actually glad there's a little bit left, because what I will do is, whether at her funeral or whether it's, you know, when her ashes are scattered or whatever happens, I don't know what's going to happen, but I will use that tiny last precious bit of liquid just to place on the ground for her. It's almost like the last few drops of, I mean, she's already gone to the light, but it's just an acknowledgement that she's gone to the light. Okay, so the Rainbow Bridge. And with the Rainbow Bridge comes the Bluebell Bridge, and the Bluebell Bridge is for loss and grief. And I want to read you the words that were channeled through from Archangel Metatron with this one, okay? This bottle, this spray, has been available for at least 3 years. It has been tweaked recently, actually. I tweaked the crystal base that is in it, and we now have, for example, Apache tear within the crystal essence. It's a lovely Apache tear, which is very good for helping with loss and grief. We've also got the crystals, angelite, apatiting quartz, morganite, howlite, flint, amethyst angel, golden tiger's eye. There's quite a lot of different crystals within the crystal base. But let me just read you the channeled words, because they're quite beautiful. I'm going to spray the spray, and then those of you that are feeling sad, feeling lost, just grieving, and this can be, it doesn't have to be something that's happened this week. This can be something that happened 40 years ago. You know, grief is something that can come up out of nowhere. So let's just use what's happened around me this week to just help to release some loss in a safe way, in a healing way for you, and for the one that went. Okay, so let's just spray the Bluebell Bridge. And you might just like to close your eyes. And let's just listen to the words from Metatron. Come to me and let me hold you a while. Here in my arms you may find some respite from the heartache that comes from loss. To have loved brings with it this high price of sorrow. Yet to not know this would mean you had not experienced the sheer joy of their presence here beside you in life. You may feel that you are drowning in a sea of emotions and pain, yet I will not let you go under. I will hold you in my powerful arms, steady you and keep you afloat through the most difficult times. For I know that grief comes and goes like the tide itself, but what always remains is the water through which you navigate your life. I am here and I am with you. I swim beside you, your lifeguard, your friend and your support. It is true that loss defines us. Truly you emerge from any such experience changed. Yet within my soft bluebell energy, I will ensure that you are cleansed and washed anew, not taking away precious memory or familiarity, but renewing you with the courage and strength to believe in another day that is coming. Like baptismal waters, you arise once more, forever changed by your experience, but with renewed sense of purpose. For each monumental loss brings with it transformation for those left behind. The Bluebell Bridge is a place for you to walk to, a sanctuary from the outside busy world, somewhere to come and be with me, Archangel Metatron, and allow some comfort and care. My door is always open, the bridge always swept and ready for your feet that may need me at any time of the day or the night. I am always here. You don't need to knock, just enter and you will find me. I see the higher picture, the soul contracts, the love that binds across the veil and that cannot be shattered by death. Yet you remain here to live your life, to fulfill your unique destiny upon this great planet, and that journey is one that sees ups and downs, challenges and gifts. Right now you see just the challenge, but I will ensure you that you receive the gifts too in time. No one is ever truly lost, for they live within your heart, a bright light that can never be extinguished or tarnished. I will remind you of this, enable you to look back in times with fond memories of what was learnt, what was given, and what was received. What feels immeasurable loss only exists upon the earth plane, for at higher level no soul can ever be lost to another. All return together and meet again eventually. My rainbow bridge exists as a meeting point for souls on both sides of the veil. I ensure that you both return to where you belong though, you to earth and them to their new home. Communication isn't lost, it has just changed. Soul connection isn't lost, it has actually deepened. For without a physical body of the one you mourn, you meet them in new ways, different ways, the smell of cologne, the presence of feathers, the light and the shadows that you know are just as much as if a physical person was right beside you. For they are beside you, and so am I. We both encourage you to live your life, to honour your feelings, to not be devoured by them, to carry on, to believe in the power of love that conquers all, and one day unites all. For now, breathe, remember, but do not give up. My Bluebell Bridge is open. Come and sit with me a while and just be. Those words, if they've touched you, can be found on my website. All of my sprays have channeled words that go with them, and you will find them if you don't have to buy the product. Just go to my shop, click on Bluebell Bridge, it'll come up with the channeled message and you can read that. You can print it off if you need to, because there's quite a lot there. Lovely words though there from Metatron. So Bluebell Bridge goes with that. One of my last memories of Barbara as well, because she was a Christian woman, is I sprayed the Christ light energy around her. And it was like this beautiful fine mist I could just see in the air, and she wasn't conscious, but I could just feel it was like it settled onto her face. And I strongly know that she felt it. So the Christ light, for anybody who is linked into the ascended Christ energy, but equally respecting the fact that some people are still linked to church and institution, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you've lived your whole life like she did as a church goer, then this energy, the Christ light, is very supportive for them as well, because again it just is a it's like a ladder, is what I'm being told. It's like a ladder of light that connects them to that great energy. I also use the Archangel Raphael spray, which might sound a bit strange because Archangel Raphael obviously is a healing spray. And for somebody that is dying or close to death, you know that they're not going to get better. But the point is that healing goes on after death. After somebody dies, the angels are very close to them and they help heal any remnants of disease that that person has carried, even though the physical body doesn't come with you after death. There is still almost like a what's the right word, Metatron? Echo is what he's saying, because the soul holds memory of everything. It holds memory of every experience we've ever had in life. And it also holds memory of illness. That doesn't mean that the soul itself is ill, but the soul can, particularly straight after death, have echoes of what it experienced in the last days, months, years of life, if they've been particularly traumatic or painful at an emotional level, a physical level, a mental level. So it's as though Raphael in particular comes through in life, comes through at death, and also carries on after death to just help to cleanse, to purify, and to bring in that beautiful green light. And don't forget green, which is the energy that links to Archangel Raphael. Green is an energy which is about expansion, it's about growth, it's about moving on. And so therefore expansion doesn't just happen in life. Expansion and moving on happens after death as well, but in a much bigger way than we can ever get our head around. So the Raphael energy felt very appropriate. I did question it at first because my initial reaction was, oh, hold on, but she's not going to get any better, so why would I use that? But straight away Raphael came through and said, no, absolutely, you use me, because my healing balm carries on through the process of death, and it carries on after death as well. There is this, okay, Raphael is saying this recalibration of the soul. That makes sense to me. It's a very strange analogy I'm being given, but I'm being given an analogy a bit like a slot machine, you know, where you pull the lever and you get like different, you get a load of lemons or a load of cherries or a load of stars, whatever. And it's like when the soul checks back in to home, which is heaven, whatever you want to call it, it's as though there is just like this recalibration, this like pulling down of the lever, where all the experiences from that last lifetime just sort of like settle down, are grounded in the soul, and then there is this process of review that happens in terms of things maybe they need to look at or appreciate again, or just look back on, basically. So the green energy is very supportive there. The bottle's, it's really leaky as well, which means that the energy really is wanting to get out. It's just, see if there's anything else. Okay, it's funny because the bottle's not spraying that well, and the reason for that is, okay, it's starting to come now. He's saying to me that if you think about greenery, he's showing me soft, fertile grass that has just been sown. So after death, it's like soft, fertile grass has only just been sown, and it's like you have to tread very, very carefully, very, very softly. So the angels go in very softly as well. He's saying that they go in actually in a softer way than sometimes they are present here on earth. Because here on earth, it's like, we need the signs, we need to know they're here. You know, show me a feather, show me a ray of light, show me, it's like, you know, they're like, whoa, okay, you're right, they need some signs, let's give them some signs. After death, it's like, you're there anyway, you know, you're surrounded by angels. They don't have to be quite so sort of like, boom, in your face, here we are. It's just much, much softer. I like that. I've also got the, thank you, Marina. My colleague Marina mentioned this to me yesterday, the rose inner child spray. Those often the inner child can be hugely affected by somebody's passing, and we forget that and we neglect that at our own peril. Okay, we try and be very adult about it, you know, we try and carry on and soldier on and do what is expected of us. And the adult self can do that, but the inner child is like having a real wobbly. Okay, so the inner child spray from Metatron is rose. It's a beautiful colour, rose. Let's just spray this. And this is just about nurturing yourself through the process of grief. Nurturing your inner child. Letting him or her know it's okay. And whatever comes up is okay to experience as well. To hold the inner child, to comfort the inner child, to be there for the inner child, to listen to him or her, to acknowledge their feelings, to not push it away. Okay. And then the last one I've got here is water. Okay, the energy of water. This could be used for people who are passing over. Remember, water is flow. So if somebody is stuck, you know, feeling as though they're stuck in a particular phase, or just not able to let go, water is a great energy to use, the water elemental. But it's also very good post death for the people that are left behind, because it's about helping to balance the emotions. So if you can't stop crying, spraying the water can actually help to balance you and not dry them up, because we don't want to dry them up, but it's more that it just helps calm you so that you can have a pause, you know, that you can pause, you can gather your breath again, you know. And equally, if you're somebody that you just can't cry, you know, you've got all this emotion within you, but it's just, it can't come out, it won't come out, and you know it's unhealthy, but you want to release it. Again, the water elemental is very good at being able to help release it. So it's intelligent, it knows what your emotional body needs, it speaks to your emotional body. The way I view them is, it's a bit like, this one is speaking to your emotional body, it's helping you to it's giving the emotional body the support that it needs, whether it needs to release or it needs to just come back to itself. The Bluebell bridge, to me, has always felt like a beautiful bouquet of beautiful flowers that is given to you, the person that is grieving, okay? Comfort and support and a hug. This one's like a hug, okay? It's like a big hug. So they work together rather beautifully, those two. The other thing that I've got sitting here on my little altar is Star of Bethlehem, a bark remedy, which is very good for shock. Take some of that. I've got some rose quartz. Love. And I will just show you this little photograph, because I wanted to talk about cycle of life, not just death. This photograph is Barbara and my husband and my little daughter Lucy, my firstborn. So that was 15 years ago. In fact, she's going to be 16 this year. God, I can't believe that. So it's nearly 16 years ago that photograph was taken, but you can see the pride in Barbara's eyes. It wasn't her first granddaughter or grandchild, but she was proud of every single one of them. And there we've got 3 generations in one shot. 3 generations, and that's what it's all about. You know, often when there's been a death in the family, there will be a child that's born. It's very, very common. Don't think it's going to happen to me. Far too old for any of that, but it'll happen somewhere in the family. There will be a birth. It's the cycle of life. It's and the other thing that's very apparent as well is that when somebody passes over, I want to just talk a little bit about bloodlines here. 2 different things to say. Firstly, I believe that usually they come back, you know, at some point, whether it's in 50 years, whether it's in 10 years, whether it's in a year, who knows? It's their choice at the end of the day. But they often come back to the same family. So, you know, they can come back and they can be the, you know, they'll just play another role within the family. They'll be reborn into it. Don't tend to stray too far from the family group, which is rather lovely. It's rather comforting to know. It's comforting to know if you've got somebody that's been very loving, as she was. If you've had somebody who's passed over who's been a complete nightmare, and you think, oh my God, no, I don't want them to come back into the family line. Please remember this, that it's like every contract gets renegotiated before a soul reincarnates back onto the earth plane. So somebody that's been maybe very abusive, very caused a lot of pain to the family group, will have to come back and will have to pay back karma in some way, okay? So the universe is ultimately fair. The universe is ultimately fair. Karma is the great balancer. So remember that as well. The other thought that came to me today along bloodlines is, it was just some observations on my own grief process, which was, I've been very upset this week and a lot of tears. And there was a part of me that was almost feeling a little bit guilty for having them, maybe, because it was almost like, you know, I shouldn't maybe be feeling quite as upset as this. You know, it wasn't my own mother. She was my mother-in-law. She wasn't my mother. You know, she's left behind 3 of her own children. I didn't want to look as though I was somehow, I don't know, hogging the grief party, if there is such a thing, you know. Very respectful of other people's grief, and almost becoming aware that, I mean, it's nonsense, I know, but almost like there's a hierarchy of grief, you know, and that, you know, you need to be respectful of the fact that somebody else has lost somebody that was actually the parent. You are only the daughter-in-law. And I was struggling with that a bit, and I was thinking, yeah, be being silly, Amanda, because you've got to honour your feelings. This is how you're feeling. You know, you've got to let it out. Nobody else is looking at you and thinking, why is she behaving like that? It's all my stuff, you know, and I was aware of that. But this morning, when I was thinking about it, what Metatron was saying to me is, don't forget that if we take this photograph and we look at 3 generations within the same family, and so little Lucy here, she will have been linked into John's family before, she'll have been linked into my family before, she'll have had a past life, you know, linked into one of us, she's come back. You know, Barbara's now departed, she'll come back at some point. And so we understand when it's blood, that's what happens. But what happens when you actually marry into a family? And what Metatron was saying to me is, when you choose a partner, and I'm talking here about an important partner, somebody who's actually, you know, you're going to have children with, who you are, we don't just have to have children with, but somebody who you marry into the bloodline and you stay in that bloodline. You know, it's not just like a fleeting couple of month relationship with somebody where you get to know their family. It's like you're really in the family. He's saying you choose your partner, obviously because you're attracted to them, or you know, you love them, hopefully both, but also at there's an underlying energy which you're not conscious of, which is actually you're attracted to the family line as well. You're attracted to their family line, you're attracted to their bloodline, because there's something in that family that you are meant to experience, learn from, be gifted, whatever. And because you are you then become intricately connected to that family, it is no surprise that probably you also are part of that soul group. So it's really interesting, because at an earthly level, obviously we don't marry into our own family, you know, that would be incestuous. But yet at soul level, what we do is we will gravitate back to soul group. But don't forget, we've all been recalibrated before we come back. It's like we've all been washed clean, or whatever it is, by Archangel Raphael. You know, our cells have been reprogrammed, so it's not the same thing. But it's like the person that marries into the family is still probably belonging to that soul group that they've chosen to marry into. That makes sense? It made perfect sense to me. So although it's not blood, although it's not bloodline, it is, we need another term for it, light line. It's like there's a light line connection, which gravitates us towards the person we marry, the person we have children with, but there is that pull towards that person for many reasons, but you're also pulled towards the family. Okay, there's something about that family, something you're meant to experience. So that was just an insight that came today that I thought was quite important to share. Okay, I think that's round about it. Is there anything else I want to say? I want to just hold maybe your candle up, which was one for your loved one, and let's just honour each other's path with the grief process. Let's be there for each other. Let's realise that this year, 2018, an 11 year, we're looking at duality. So we're going to be looking at both sides of the coin. We're going to be looking at some very challenging times. We're going to be looking at loss. We're going to be looking at times when we think, oh God, it's just so difficult, I can't carry on. But the promise is the other side of the coin is great joy, great happiness. And we have to hang around for that. We have to be present for that. We want to be around for that. And if there are members in our community where we can feel that they're really struggling with the darker side of it, let's just light them up, okay? And also realise that all these ancestors, I feel like I've got all the ancestors in my hand here, all of your loved ones in my hand, and it feels really warm. They are willing us on, you know? They're reminding you that life is short. It's a simple truth, but it's the truth. Life is short, and life is to be lived, and life is to be enjoyed. Even if it's not perfect, there's still beauty within it. And I'm going to spray right at the end. This is a new, we've been tweaking the formulation for the New Dawn spray. So my beautiful yellow roses, let's just spray the New Dawn. And the New Dawn always comes after the darkest night. And the New Dawn here on Earth is stunningly beautiful. Bright rays of sunshine. The promise of another day. Enjoy your day today. Be present, surrounding you with lots of angels. And I hope this video has helped you. Much love, everybody. All the sprays that I've mentioned, by the way, they can all be found on my website. I'll put the link below. Bye-bye for now. See you soon.